And oops, I'll share the screen here. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us tonight for ToaD Learning Camp. Tonight we're going to talk about all-inclusives. And I've got Melissa Kyler here with me, and between the two of us, we're going to tell you everything you want to know about all-inclusives. And we're going to start with what is really considered an all-inclusive? What does it entail? What kind of places can you go to an all-inclusive? And Melissa's been to Cancun, Riviera Maya area, and I've been to Punta Cana. So we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about those two areas and go over several different brands of all-inclusive resorts. So what's included at an all-inclusive? I mean, obviously, all-inclusive, you think everything is included, but all-inclusives do vary a little bit. You will find that they're all going to include your resort. They're going to include your meals. What makes an all-inclusive different than just someplace with a meal plan is all of your meals are included. You're not like when you go to Disney on a meal on one of the dining plans where you have certain number of credits, and that's not the case at an all-inclusive. It's all available. Some of them will have upcharges for different locations and meals, and that's where we get into the differences of different brands. Beverages, for the most part, you're going to find your alcoholic beverages and non-alcoholic beverages are included, but again, when we're looking at the different brands, the types of alcoholic beverages are going to vary. In some places, they say domestic beverages, domestic alcoholic beverages. And that doesn't mean your Miller Lite, your Bud Light, and that sort of thing. It's domestic to wherever you're traveling. And so they are going to be imported for us, but it's going to be just the domestic local brands. And then activities, and these are usually just going to be non-motorized activities. You're snorkeling or windsurfing and that sort of thing on the beach. And they do have activities throughout the resort, much like being on a cruise. They'll have different trivia and pool games and things like that just at the resort. And where can you go on to an all-inclusive? The most popular area is going to be the Caribbean, and this could be anywhere from many of the islands out there to Mexico. Even I put it as Caribbean, but the western coast of Mexico, they do have all-inclusives there too, going down into Central America, in Costa Rica. They have some as well. Some of the smaller countries don't have quite as many, but you can find them in a lot of places in the Caribbean. The United States is very limited in the all-inclusives that you have. For instance, on the U.S. Virgin Islands, there's only a handful. I think there's only really two maybe, and one of them I'm not sure it's ever reopened since the hurricanes. Puerto Rico has one if it's reopened, and Florida has one, Sandpiper Key with Club Med for beach experiences. But then I included ranch experiences here too, because you can go out to Montana or in northern upstate in New York and do an all-inclusive ranch experience. And again, this is going to vary on what all is included at the ranch experiences. I have found different things with horses and cattle drives and that sort of thing, but there are also extra charges for a lot of the activities. They will include all 3 meals a day. They're not quite as extensive as all-inclusive in the Caribbean, where the buffets usually open all day and you can go anytime. It's more of a bed and breakfast towards type food experience where they make a meal at specific times a day and your meals are all included. Um, I put Hawaii on here because you wouldn't believe how many clients ask us for all-inclusives in Hawaii, and they just don't exist. So you cannot do an all-inclusive in Hawaii. And so, Melissa, do you want to start off and talk a little bit about Cancun and Riviera Maya? And actually, I want to go one step further here. We're going to talk about the type of experience and what activities are available are really going to depend on not just where you're going, but also so the location as well as the type of resort that you're staying at. And we talked a little bit yesterday about the difference in the feel in Cancun and Riviera Maya and Punta Cana. And I think they all kind of attract a little bit different crowd. But then also we'll look at the brands after that. So Melissa, why don't you take it away?
So in Cancun and the Riviera Maya area, there are more activities than I think than in Punta Cana and that in the Dominican Republic. In Cancun, there's a lot in that area. There's a lot of ruins that people like to visit when they're there. There's shopping experiences. There's lots of different activities as well. So there's lots of excursions you can take off site of your resort. Um, I think that you would pick Cancun, Riviera Maya if you're a little more adventurous compared to. I mean, there's definitely lots of relaxation there, right? Don't get me wrong. If you don't want to do anything, you can just go to the resort, lay at the beaches, the pools, do that kind of thing. They do have some activities at the resorts, but you're definitely, if you want an authentic experience, if you want just that, even the touristy experiences, right? You're gonna go off site and you're gonna do some of the excursions. So activities available, like I said, would be like the ruins. They have like, I don't know how you say it exactly, but like uh, Chichen Itza, maybe, Tulum, Koba, all those are different ruins. They have the cenotes, which are basically caves that the ceiling of the cave has collapsed and you can now swim in that water. Those are very popular there. And I can't remember how many they said, but there's like 100 and some right in that Cancun Riviera Maya area. So there's tons of those to do. There's also ATV, zip lining. They have Xcaret, which is a ecological park with 50 different activities to do right in that one area. So there's lots for the adventure seekers and the families that want to do some stuff together. Shopping too, there's some shopping areas you can go to while you're in Cancun. The Riviera Maya has lots of nice shopping areas. Puerto Morales is a nice little town that has some shopping areas. And then right there in the Cancun hotel zone, if you're staying there, you can leave your resort and go right to some shopping, depending on which resort you are. You can walk right to those shopping areas as well. So I think that's the big draw for the Cancun Riviera Maya area, is that you can have that relaxation, but there's also a lot of stuff to do there as well.
And when you go over to Punta Cana, it's exactly the opposite. If you want an experience where you're mostly staying at the resort and not really venturing out anywhere, the Dominican Republic is a good choice for that. There are some activities you can do off site. We did one when I was there that we went to a chocolate farm and a coffee farm and went up in the mountaintops and had a little meal there and then went to the beach and did some swimming. But when we looked at the list of excursions that were available, there weren't a lot that really caught our eye that were something that you would want to go off site to do. Doing the snorkeling and diving and all that sort of thing right from the resort is definitely possible there. And that just seemed to be a lot more of the feel in Punta Cana. If I'm talking to a client and they want to just relaxed. They really want to stay in that resort area and they don't want to do anything touristy at all. I might suggest Punta Cana over going to Cancun or Riviera Maya. Just like Cancun, I would suggest Riviera Maya for a lot more adventurous and more activities close by to where you are, versus Cancun, where if you want to go see the ruins, you're going to be going a lot further to do that. But in that same respect, when you get in on the plane, if you're going just to sit around at the pool and the pool bar, um, and you want to go stay way down in Riviera Maya, it's a long ways down there. So it's a little bit closer from the airport to the resorts in Punta Cana versus Riviera Maya. Cancun's very close to the airport.
I would say one other thing is that I noticed we stayed all the way up in the north part, and then we drove our way down and we went down as far as Maroma. And I felt that the beaches were prettier the further you got down into Mexico, where you didn't, I don't know, it was more blue, it was more prominent, the ocean there, and the beaches I thought were prettier once you moved farther down away from the actual city part of it.
Did you happen to notice more about the seagrass? Because they say that the seagrass is worse the further south you go, and that there's less up in Cancun. But
When I went, I didn't notice necessarily more, but everybody's always out there cleaning it up every morning, you know what I mean? So I didn't really notice it as a problem per se. I do have some pictures that have some seagrass in there. I guess it probably still continues to accumulate per day, throughout the day, but they do try and take care of it very well. So it didn't seem to be an issue when I was there.
well, and I was at a beach down in Costa Maya, which is going to be way down, just beyond the bottom of the square here,
Okay.
and it was always really bad.
Oh,
But they would clear it out, but
yeah.
it comes back constantly. So if you don't want to see anything like that, then further up is usually a little bit better. Um, and okay. And so the other thing that we talked about was the brands are very different, but within the brands, there's also different levels that you can get. So what you should think about with this is going to Disney, for example. You can stay at a value property, you can upgrade to a moderate property, and these might all be in the same complex. And then you can also go up to a deluxe and all within the same complex. Some of the resorts that I went to, we'd be in the adult only section, and then they had a family section. They had uh, two or three other resorts within the same complex, and the people who were at the highest end could go to the other resorts and use all their facilities and do all the activities there. But the lower resort that you were at, you could not move up. So if you were at a base level room in a base level resort, those were the only restaurants that you could go to, the activities that you could participate in, the bars that you could go to. But if you were one level up, you had your set, but you could also go down to the other level. Which is kind of nice if you want a little bit more variety, to be able to have your own area where not as many people are going to, but have the option to try the other things as well. Um, Melissa, do you want to add anything to that, or do you want to talk about these first few slides?
Yeah, sure. So, right, as Tracy was saying, there's definitely a club level at almost every resort. So of course there too, you're going to get specialty restaurants that only you are going to get, that are people that are in that club level. You're going to get a lounge. You're going to get a special pool that only you can use. So there's going to be lots of nice little adders for that as well. So, if you want that like ultimate experience, then I think you should upgrade to that club level. But These pictures here are of a Charisma resort. This is actually in El Dorado. Um, and the Charisma resorts, I think, are really for foodies. I found that Charisma is really big on their food. Like in the first picture, you can see there's a whole bunch of chefs up on that picture, because that restaurant, they have these chefs that have come in and created food for this restaurant. So that's a very important aspect of the Charisma resorts, is the food. I also like the fact that they had the little instead of having just a room, right, or a suite, you actually had your own little hut, basically, right? It's some throughout the resort, so those are different room categories that you could get through the Charisma resorts. And then the other picture is a plunge pool. So if you were up on a higher level, then you had the option to have your own little personal plunge pool out on your balcony. So you can tell this is a little bit more upscale than some of the other resorts. This is the view of the beach here. You can see some of that sargassum there that Tracy was talking about. So yeah, it is there. Like I said, they try and clean it up. They do a really good job, but it's Mother Nature. And as long as you kind of know to expect it, I think that you can still enjoy it. You just know that it's going to be there and there's not much you can do about it. But as you can see, there's a nice pool that's right there before the beach. And all you can see on those, the balconies there, those are all the little plunge pools where you see the blue there. So that's pretty neat. And then this is also a Charisma resort. Now, these are the Palafitos, and this was down by Maroma. So this was the furthest down we had went. And these are the little over the water bungalows. So that's really, really an upscale version of, especially for Mexico. I think there's not very many over the water bungalows. So these here, you have your own little deck. You can see that where you can go right into the ocean right there from your overwater bungalow. And then you can see, of course, while you're inside your bungalow, you can see the water underneath of you and the fish swimming around. So, if you're looking for something a bit more upscale, overwater bungalows are the way to go, I think.
There's a number of resorts that are starting to add them. I think El Dorado is one of the first.
Mhm.
Sandals might have been one of the Sandals in Jamaica, I think, was the first.
Okay.
And El Dorado is one of the first in the Cancun area.
The next brand is the Hyatt brand, and I did really enjoy the Hyatt brand. If you're already familiar with Hyatt in the US, I mean, then you kind of know what you're getting yourself into there. But the Zilara is the adults only, so it's right next door to the Ziva, which is the family resort, which Tracy was kind of talking about. If you're over at the Zilara, the adults, you can come over to the family resort and use their facilities as well. So you get two resorts for one, basically, but you can still stay on your side if you don't want to be involved with kids at all. Now these are their swim up suites. You walk right down, you have a little stepway. I thought that was really a cool little option. And it's not like you're walking right out to it. So it looked like you had your balcony and then your swim out suite. And then the Ziva, like I said, it's family resort. And I love this resort. It has dolphins right on site. So you could do your dolphin swim right there. They have a candy shop that's included in the all-inclusive. So you go in, you just pick out what candy and you can eat it right there. So there's lots of great options with this as well. And it's probably, I'd say, mid-priced. I don't think it's not going to be as expensive as your Charisma resorts, but again, it's not your low-end property that you would think of in Cancun as well. So I think these are great properties for either or families or adults only. And then this is Live Aqua. This brand is all about holistic healing, right? Like you walk in, they've got the aromatherapy going, the food's mostly clean food, all natural and organic. And so they have, lots of fitness stuff, that kind of thing. So this is all about all about whatever, if you're a fitness nut, or you just want to go and still continue on your regimen, if you eat cleaner or whatever the case may be. um I feel like, I don't know where I was going with that. But you get a room diffuser, all that kind of stuff. So I feel like this is a specific resort for a specific person, right? So we were talking about that, how each resort has a different feeling and each person's going to want a different resort. This is a specific resort, and you wouldn't want to send somebody there who wants cheeseburgers and french fries, right? So you have to know your client to know if this resort is going to fit them. But and then the other picture on the right is just to show you that this is really close to the downtown area in Cancun on the hotel zone. So you can go shopping right there at that mall. You can walk right from the resort right across the street, and there you got your shopping. So again, it all just depends on what you're looking for in your resort, but you can see that there's all kinds of different options.
And that's one thing that I wanted to add too is when we're talking to clients about going to an all-inclusive, we're going to ask a lot of questions so that we can find the right option for the client, because there are so many different personalities of different resorts, and you'll see in the pictures I'm going to go through, even throughout the brands, you can find something that's totally different. I went to, I think, 12 different resorts in 3 days that I was there. And Melissa, you were pretty close to the same, where you did more, didn't you?
Yeah, we did 14. Yeah.
And, they start to blend together after a while, but you do get a good feel touring them of what types they are. And the same goes with the types of rooms too, because you can have just a plain no view, garden view room, ocean view, ocean front, swim up, plunge pool, private pools, private villas, all different kinds of things. We went to one that had a hot tub on a rooftop terrace overlooking the ocean. And so there's a lot of different levels that you can go to with that. And this is where I stayed. And this is an example of, this is not my style of resort at all. I think it was a beautiful resort, but it's not something that I would want to stay at for a week if I was down there. It didn't give me a real tropical feel. It was more contemporary, but it has the swim up rooms. It has plunge pools. My room was just a balcony, and it had a hot tub right next to where the day bed is here. It was an inside hot tub that had a window you could open and be outside. So I didn't have time to even think about using it because we were constantly gone. But this just was, it was a nice new resort and very clean and contemporary. This is the Excellence El Carmen. This one is the Serenus, and this was more of a low end resort. It's an older resort. The rooms were pretty dated, but this would be a really inexpensive alternative and still have a very tropical feel there. The other thing that I found really interesting, this resort is right next door to the El Carmen that I was staying at. And when I was at my resort, I would have never known there was a resort anywhere nearby. They do a really good job of keeping the resorts that are not part of the same brand together, and so that you can see them. When I looked at back later, when I looked on the map, I was surprised how close I was to everything when we were touring. This is chic. This is a very upscale, carefree kind of place. They have a pole in the bar for dancing. So just a little different. And this one was this was a Blue Diamond Resort. This is a Royalton. Royalton's probably one of the three that I would stay at if I were to go. It was very tropical. It still had a lot of the updated amenities in some of the rooms, and if you upgraded to the club level, and this was a nice resort. But then behind it, they also had another resort that was called Sunscape that was a little bit more family friendly, lower price because it's not right on the ocean, and they had a water park there as well. This is the Hard Rock in Punta Cana, and huge resort, absolutely enormous resort. Just to get to the beach, we had to take a tram. They also have a golf course on property, and but this is an example of not everything is always included. They have a lot of restaurants there, and they give you resort credit, and you use that resort credit when you're there, and that's how it's included. But there's some things that, some different restaurants will cost you more resort credit than others. On the left-hand side, this is the Rio Republica. This was a brand new resort as well when we were there. This is an adults-only Rio property. Rio tends to be more of your value resort in the Caribbean. Now, I've had clients who stayed at the Rio Palace in Costa Rica, and they absolutely loved it. They said it was fantastic. So then they went and stayed at another Rio property in Punta Cana, and said it was so low class for them. So even within the same brand, you go to a different island and you can get a different experience as well. The resort on the right is the ocean sand and ocean blue and sand. Let's get that screwed up. This one is a little bit older property, but it's all been redone inside. So the rooms are really nice and clean. It is a little bit smaller property, but they also had a tram to make it a little bit easier. They actually have a bowling alley on property, and a lot of them will also have theaters on property and offer some activities. And this is the Nickelodeon Resort, and they do have a giant pineapple that you can rent out, like SpongeBob SquarePants, and they have a big aqua park as well, that's across the road, that they have a tunnel underneath the road to go to. And the adults only resort that I talked about, this is Turquesa on the left. This was part of a very large complex, but this was just a very small portion of that, and this was all exclusive for adults only. And they only had a couple restaurants for the adult only part, but they could go to all the other parts as well. And the one on the right is the Excellence Punta Cana. And you can see from and I want to go back quick to, this was the Excellence El Carmen. So you can see there's a big different feel in the area there to the Punta Cana resort. I would stay any day at the Excellence Punta Cana. I wouldn't personally like to stay at the El Carmen again. So there's lots of different options and lots of different feels and activities and experiences. And of course, I had to share a sunrise from my last day before I flew home in Punta Cana. And now we will open it up for some questions. I'm going to go one slide further before I stop sharing. And next week, we're going to talk about ski vacations, which I know nothing about. And so we'll have one of our other agents here to talk about that with all of you guys, because she just got back from Breckenridge, I think. Breckenridge, Colorado. So if anybody's got any questions, feel free to unmute your line and ask Melissa or I about that.
I did not realize Hyatt had all inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't either, Mark. I was like, oh,
Now, I believe, oh no, that was I don't know if you can use points when you're at the Hyatt. I know the Hilton is starting to add more all-inclusives to their offerings for using points, but it is a little bit different than if you're staying on points than if you're staying booked just straight through the package. One thing that's kind of nice that we do is we use companies like Apple Vacations and Pleasant Holidays and several others out there so that we can bundle the all-inclusive with your airfare. And we've found that many times you'd be surprised at the savings doing it that way than booking them separate. I mean, we can book them separate, but we find that a lot of times you're going to save a lot more than just using your airline miles and flying down there.
What are the price ranges from the value to the, I guess, the deluxe? I'm assuming Hyatt is going to be at one of the top end ones, but I could be wrong. Some of those others look pretty nice too.
The question will be how many days, what season. It really varies a lot. It's hard to say. And we can find specials all the time where we get some pretty good rates, and it depends the day of the week that you're traveling. I've found sometimes where someone will say that they want to stay for 4 to 7 nights, and just because of the airfare shifting it around, you can get more nights for a lower cost. So it really varies. But the Rius are going to be the more inexpensive properties. Sandals are going to be some of your tops. In Jamaica, they've got couples resorts. Those are going to be on the higher end price wise. Royalton, Hard Rock tends to be one of the more expensive ones. I don't think we included any AM resorts. At the time that we went on our tour, they were not part of, or they weren't a big part of Apple Vacations, that's who we went with when we went and toured them, and now they are. And that's why we were hoping Deb would join us tonight, because she's done a lot of research on the AM resorts, and she went there for her honeymoon. And those are some of the top properties as well. But they have a wide range of prices too. A lot of different brands with a lot of different personalities and different price ranges as well.
Is there a minimum you have to stay for
Not
at some of these properties?
Not
No?
really, no.
I would say though, right now, if you're planning on a trip soon, you need to stay at least 3 nights so you can get that test.
Is
So
it
that they'll give
3 or is
you-
it 4?
Yeah.
It's 3 nights for a lot of the Cancun
Okay.
ones.
A lot of the resorts have agreed to pay for the COVID test that's required right now to get back into the United States, but you have to have a 3-night minimum stay in order for
Okay, I forgot about that. And will they do them on property, or you have to go to like the clinic in town to have it done?
A good share of them are doing it on property.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll set up your appointment as soon as you arrive. They give you either a letter or call your room or whatever and give you your time that you're scheduled for, and then you'll have them usually within 24 hours, that letter that you need to get back on the plane.
And many of them are also covering, at least for the short term, they're covering if you should happen to get a positive test, they will allow you to quarantine there for up to 10 days. Some of them do charge you a small amount to do it, to stay on, but it's significantly reduced.
You just have to realize though that you will be in a room. You will not be allowed to leave that room. You will have a balcony, is from what I've understood, that they are giving you a room with a balcony, because I'm pretty sure almost all the rooms there have that anyway. But they might move you from the room you've paid for. So depending on where they have that set up. So you'll probably be moved to a different room. You have to stay in your room. You'll have to go out into the balcony when they come to service your room, and you'll get 3 meals per day from what I'm reading on most resorts anyway. No alcohol is included. So still not partying, but hey, at least you have a balcony and you can see the outside.
Well, and I want to add that about alcohol. When I was talking earlier about the difference in the types of alcohol that you have, another thing that I noticed going from different types of resorts, some of them have bottle service in your room where you have a certain number of bottles that are included in your room, and other ones don't include that, and some have cheaper bottles and some have the top shelf bottles in your room. So those are some of the big differences when you're looking. You can't just look at an all-inclusive and say, well, this one is $500 less than this one. There's a reason why it's $500 less. And it could be the types of food, the types of restaurants that they have, the types of alcohol that they're serving, the number of activities that they include. But there's always a reason why, and we can usually figure that out for you. Anybody else have any questions?
Do other resorts have a shuttle from the airport to come and get you, or some on your own to get back and forth?
When we book it through Apple Vacations, Apple does include transfers to the resort, and they use a specific company for that. Sandals always includes transfers with their resorts. There's a couple others that do include transfers, but many times they are an add-on. That's one of the reasons we like to go with Apple, because they're included, but we can always include them so that you don't have to worry about that as a separate expense or a separate thing you have to figure out. And Todd asked, are most resorts geared towards couples? I would say no. When I stayed at Excellence El Carmen, that was a couples resort. And so going into it, they told us right up front that we would not be sharing a room with other travel agents because there was one bed in every room. That's it. But there are some that are definitely geared towards couples, and some that are geared towards just adults in particular. And then others that are more geared towards families. So there's a wide range with who they appeal to, as well as the style and what they offer. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So is it just like the food and beverages are mostly what they include? Or do they also include, I want to say it's like
You're hard to hear. Can you move over closer to the microphone?
do they, I assume they include food and beverage, but do they also include activities, or are they going to charge you for snorkel gear and charge you for badminton, or charge you for volleyball, charge you for just nickel and dime you for every activity?
It varies. There are some activities that are included at almost all of them. I think that if you're doing it, do you know, Melissa, about like snorkel gear? I think that is something that is included at most.
Yeah, it's usually anything that's non-motorized,
Yeah.
right? So all this, like the paddle boards and things like that, are usually included. So of course there could be a resort that doesn't include that, but we get that information when we're looking at the resorts. We'll know what's included and what's not, so we can let you guys know that if you were interested in a specific resort, to say, this one doesn't include this, this, and this, or whatever the case may be. But for the most part, it's all non-motorized activities are included.
Yeah, so like if you're snorkeling from the beach, that
Yeah.
they would have the snorkel equipment for you, but they would also probably have a shore excursion that they offered where they would take you out on a boat and take you to a reef to go snorkeling.
Right.
And that would cost extra to do that. I think I've seen some of them where they have like sunset cruises and stuff like that as well, or glass bottom boats, and just depending upon the resort will depend on what all is an extra charge and which is included, but a lot of the non-motorized sports are going to be included.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, if nobody has any other questions, then well, thank you for coming and look forward to seeing you next week when we talk about snow. I
We
don't
got
know.
that here.
Yeah, I know. We do too. So